Hey everybody,
Hello.
welcome to the Resistance Rundown, episode 18, our weekly Star Wars show where we talk about everything in our favorite galaxy.
That's right. Lots to talk about today.
Yeah.
Very exciting. It's nice to have
It's
some
been
real news.
It's been a slow week, really. There's nothing, hardly anything
Well,
going on.
you know. Well, before we get to the big stuff, we are going to talk about just two little things with The Last Jedi, although I think we're all ready to, get to the
main event.
Get to the main event here. The first is that THR is reporting that The Last Jedi won Best Movie for Grown-Ups at the 17th Annual AARP Award Show on Monday night. Hamill and Kelly Marie Tran presented the award to director Rian Johnson. He also just had a really cute clip with Ash Crossan, who works for Entertainment Weekly. And, just saying that means a lot to him that grown-ups can love Star Wars just as much as kids do,
right.
and that they can appreciate it. So, really cute video. You can find it on YouTube, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And there are a few other smaller stories concerning aspects of The Last Jedi. We had Donald Gleason talking about his personal surprise at Hux surviving the 8th episode. Collider also did an IMAX screening for The Last Jedi with a sit-down with Rian Johnson. He kind of starts to go into Kylo Ren's motivations in the throne room scene with Snoke. Why Han's funeral is not included, just a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
So we're not really going to focus on any of that because we have so many new and exciting things to discuss. But that Collider video can be found on their YouTube page for anyone interested.
Yeah.
So
check
that out.
It's a good video.
Yeah, it is. It's longer, so just prepare to, be there
like
for a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. You can skip around if you want to.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, we're going to move into Solo.
Just a few things.
Just a little bit of excitement around this movie currently. The first is that we got a big game spot in addition to a trailer the following day on Monday. Lots of things going on in these two clips, which actually a lot of new footage between the two of them.
Yeah,
not
it's
too much
really
repeat.
Two different teasers almost.
Yeah, it really is.
Very little repeat.
And so we've got the gold dice at the beginning of the trailer and the speeder, just do want to point that out. And then we also get a look at most of our characters that we've heard about from the very beginning.
Yep.
But Jonathan, what is standing out for you?
I think just the way that it's shot, there's a bunch of different, feels very gritty in some sections, and you've got a lot of these Western vibes, which I think work really well. In Bradford Young, who's the cinematographer, I think that really shows. It's like his color palette. This shot right here, the Falcon, is incredible. It looks like straight out of a comic book to me. So the whole look of it, all the characters, just little quick glimpses. Everybody's already obsessed with Lando, I think, more so than almost any other character. The Falcon, of course, looking extremely different than the way that we see it. But, there's just so much stuff in here.
Yeah.
And not a ton of story beats, but, we don't really need that yet. So,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the appearance of the Falcon is a big thing. It almost looks imperial in its cleanliness and its color scheme, just seeing really the white instead of what we see by the time it comes into A New Hope, and even more so by the time Force Awakens happens.
Well, I think it's too, you've got that you can tell that probably Lando is the owner at this point.
Yes.
There's a picture we'll go into here in a little bit that actually kind of has more of a Lando kind of color scheming in the way that the interior looks.
Absolutely. So. And Lando, it's really funny. I feel like there have been tons of memes for Donald Glover ever since the trailer came out. And it's just because he looks perfect in this role. I am really loving Emilia Clarke's character. Kira, obviously we don't know a ton about her at this point, but her costuming is some of the most striking images in these trailers, so I'm loving that.
It's very Targaryen, which is really kind of wonderful.
Yeah, I know, it's just kind of like, hey. And due to a later story, you'll understand just how fun that is. And then really, I feel like there's been a lot of complaints about Alden Ehrenreich not really sounding like Harrison Ford, not really looking, costuming, he looks like Harrison Ford, obviously, in Solo. But not necessarily looking like him, not sounding like him. However, some of the lines that we get in this trailer, guys, that's Han.
It's very Han. I mean, the thing, I think people are overreacting just a little bit. Um, it's one of those things that really wasn't going to matter who was playing this role. It wasn't going to be Harrison Ford because he's 70 some odd years old. It's not going to work. And so whoever it was is not going to be Harrison.
No.
And that's just going to be something that we're all going to have to deal with. And I think I would rather have somebody who I know is a good actor do his thing than someone come in and try to do a Harrison impression.
Yeah.
And I think it's a risk. I mean, I think the safe thing might have been to bring somebody in that can just sound like Harrison and do whatever. But
yeah.
But ultimately, you got to carry a whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think we got to give him a chance.
Yeah.
It's really hard to base an entire film off of 2 minutes of footage, most of which is not even him. So
yeah, exactly.
Which,
speaking of the footage, the cinematography going into this is absolutely beautiful. Same cinematographer that did Arrival, and I feel like you can definitely tell just from these shots. Yeah,
shots.
No, absolutely, they're striking. Even him standing outside the Falcon whenever there's all this dust going around. That one's one of my favorites. So, yeah, you guys go ahead and comment and let us know what did you think of the trailer, what did you think of the big game spot. Just let us know what you're thinking, and we're going to keep on talking about Solo a little bit more, because in addition to the trailer dropping, we also got some really cool posters for the film. We have one featuring Alden Ehrenreich as Solo, one of Donald Glover as Lando, one of Emilia Clarke as Kira, and then also just Chewbacca.
It's nice for Chewie to have a poster for
Yeah, it is. Feeling the love for Chewie at this point. And I just like the retro feel of these quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which, Mike, I'm seeing your comment, expectations, tisk tisk. And
that's pretty true.
Yes. Right now, I think that's the main thing working against Solo at the moment, is that people are going to expect a certain thing, and if it's not what they're expecting, then of course we're going to have all mayhem break loose.
Yeah, basically.
Let's see. Mike also said you can definitely feel a little more Disney, but I appreciate that Ron Howard is at the helm. Very excited to see what Ron Howard has done with this.
Yeah, I mean, Ron Howard is, it goes without saying, his body of work stands on its own. So
yes,
I think it was a good choice.
Yeah, I agree. Especially in light of all that has gone down. So. Yeah.
Which we are supposedly going to hear a little bit more about that this week, supposedly.
Yeah.
With this Entertainment Weekly.
So Entertainment Weekly is doing multiple stories on Solo throughout the entire week. Of course, just kind of kicking off their whole marketing campaign. That started with some interviews. An interview with Alden Ehrenreich actually just dropped a couple of hours ago, which means I don't have a ton of it in our notes yet, so bear with us. But so far, one of the interesting things that we're hearing is just Harrison Ford meeting with them about the film, and just kind of seeing what all he brought to it, that he sat down with Ehrenreich and made jokes about what to tell people, which I really appreciate. It's very Harrison Ford.
Very Harrison.
But then also telling him, this is what the backstory was that Lucas kind of gave me whenever I was being introduced to this character. I feel like that was something that Ehrenreich talks about, how much it really helped him, and things that he shared even with the cast and the crew as they were going forward. And he also talked to Ron Howard. There were several things that Ron Howard called him about with the same thing. So just some interesting stuff there. If you get a chance, head over to Entertainment Weekly. Like I said, that whole interview is really cool. Really enlightening, and just a lot about how Han is going to kind of go from this optimistic dreamer who has been touched by the oppression of the Empire into the man that we pick up with in A New Hope. So definitely some changes coming for him.
Yeah, definitely.
So we have that, and right before that we had a slew of images released as well. With the images, we got an introducing article to everything. And in that, we see that the filmmakers kind of described the film as a Western crossed with a film noir, and it's freighted with offbeat humor and set in the criminal underbelly of a galaxy being torn apart, which Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote the script, kind of talks some as well, that for him it was very much a buddy cop type movie.
Right.
With elements between Chewie and Han. Some comments from Anthony Bresnikan, who actually works for EW and wrote the article, is he says, try as he might to live outside the law, to care about nothing, to embody his loner name, he finds himself inexorably pushed and pulled by the tractor beam of his own decency. Just when you think he's gone forever, he comes back to save the day. We also had some comments from Kathleen Kennedy in the article. She describes Solo as a heist gunslinger type movie. She also says he might be a little more immature, he may be a little less experienced, and he may hone his cynicism over time, but he's very wary. He needs to gain the respect of the people he interacts with, even if they're the lowest of the low. So, of course, along the way, we're going to see him befriend Chewie. I think we're going to see him kind of fall a little bit for Kira, Emilia Clarke's character. Obviously, going to cross paths with Lando, and then also the droid sidekick, L337. And he'll also face career crooks Tobias Beckett, of course, Woody Harrelson, Val, who we don't know hardly anything about, except she is a blaster, is played by Thandie Newton, and then crime boss Dryden Voss, who is played by Paul Bettany. So lots of good things coming here. Aaron Wright made the comment that if you're trying to figure out who's good and who's bad, you're not alone. I think that's exactly what Han's trying to do throughout the film. So I love that we're kind of pushing into that some of who is going to be trustworthy, who's not,
right,
and what's the story there. So just some really neat things in those articles so far. And so let's get into these pictures that we had released. The first is Chewie and Han in the Falcon, punching it, quotation marks. Lawrence Kasdan mentioned that this is definitely a love story between Han and Chewie in parts. As much as anything else, and their friendship was always his favorite part of the saga, and so he definitely goes into that in the film. So very exciting there. We get one of Lando playing Sabacc, which is exactly where we would expect to find him, and Glover kind of posing the question, how good is Lando? How good is Solo? So lots of fun things to speculate there, and that smirk on his face. Guys, that is pure Lando right there.
Lando, yeah.
We also have one of just Solo standing in the desert. Aaron Wright comments that the main difference for Han is that he's still a bit of an idealist at this point. Definitely going to be a huge part of his journey during the film. We have Kira with Han. We have been told that Han grows up on the mean streets of the galaxy with one friend, a fellow cast-off named Kira. And Clark's comment was to not be fooled by her character's elegant facade. If you've got a really glamorous lady in a really sordid environment, you kind of know the glamour is hiding a few rough roads.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting because I think we're going to see her pop up at the beginning and then come back into play later.
Yeah.
Mike, I see your comment. Classy. Agreed. We also have Han and Chewie on the Convex, is what we're being told this thing is. It's a double-sided train that some heist is clearly taking part on, although everyone has very cleverly avoided all of the questions about that so far.
Right.
We also have a picture of a clean Falcon with Chewbacca, Han, and Tobias Beckett. Howard describes Beckett as a powerful criminal but a free agent. He says that Beckett really shapes Han more than anybody, as Han comes to believe that in a lawless time he needs a moral code. Which I also love that in the beginning that he, or in the trailer, we hear him call Han Kid. Which I think is something that is perfect, seeing as that's how he kind of refers to Luke in the first movie. We also have a picture of the Falcon moving through space. Of course, this is a perfect shot to show that this is a closed nose instead of the prongs that we are used to for the Falcon. There's a story there. And Howard's comments about it, where you'll have to see the Falcon as a character in the movie without a doubt. That machine is a defining factor in Han's future. Every aspect of this movie moves, shifts, and transforms in very interesting and yet plausible ways. So our next photo is L337. This is Phoebe Waller-Bridge's mechanical character that she did via motion capture. This is the one we've been waiting to kind of see up until this point. Her character supposedly has a more idiosyncratic personality than your typical droids. More human, which probably means more emotional and slightly less rigid. And then our last photo is the Mud Troopers on Mimban. So, for those who are familiar with Legends, Mimban is a swamp world, a marshland. Finally seeing it officially come to canon. It has an atmosphere full of thunderstorms, so its sky is perpetually overcast and the land is always draped in mist. So just want to talk about some comments that we got so far. Brad says, I love how they made him look the role of a gunslinger in the commercial. How much do you think his spice smuggling will come into play? I think in the later part of the story it's going to come into play. From what we can get from the trailer, you take it for what it's worth. Obviously going to have him starting out being an Imperial cadet of some kind, not going forward with that, obviously. And then I'm sure smuggling will come into play as how he's going to make his money. I'm not sure. I'm thinking it's probably be after whatever he's doing with Beckett, but
yeah, I
we'll
think
see.
probably what you're going to see is, start off with him younger, with Kira, and probably already knowing Beckett at that point.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming what's going to happen is we're going to go into the Imperial thing. We may jump ahead a little bit, because really, whenever you see him in the trailer, it's a split scene. It's I think that's one part at the beginning of the movie, and I think another part at the end. So I think whenever you see him in the snow, that's actually the job for that is the train.
Yeah. I think it's a good chance.
I think that's probably toward the end.
Yeah.
Is my guess.
Yeah, I think it's a good possibility. And then Mike had just commented that he loved the pictures. I agree. I think the pictures, I almost love the pictures even more than the trailer. I love the trailers, which I also love the soundtrack that we were getting. The score for the trailers are really great. Yeah. But these pictures are really shedding a lot of light in a lot of these comments. So very much appreciating that. So before we move on, our last story, as it were, is that photos have already been removed from this, but Star Wars Newsnet reported on some of the toy leaks for Solo. Hasbro had them take it down. But one item in particular seems to indicate a building that is architecturally similar to Jabba's palace. So, are we going to see Jabba in this film?
I think it's a good possibility. I don't think it's a guarantee, but I wouldn't count it out.
Yeah. I think that if he does come in, I think it will probably be toward the end. Mm-hmm. And because we know from A New Hope that he's been smuggling for him for at least some time, and he drops that shipment because of the Imperials. So I think we'll probably see him come in at some point. Yeah. Brad asked, the gap in the front of the Falcon is for moving space barges, correct?
That is.
I think that's what
my understanding is that is something to do with the freight aspect of what the Falcon is originally derived for. So I don't know all the specifics, but from what I can understand, it is for cargo purposes.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see that come into play as well.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving right along into our miscellaneous movie news, things that don't deal with our current saga, things that don't deal with the ones that we know are confirmed already. And this is a big story that D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, the duo behind Game of Thrones, are bringing their talent to Lucasfilm. The two will be writing and producing another series of films in the Star Wars franchise once they finish their final season of Game of Thrones. This series will be separate from the Skywalker saga and the trilogy being developed by Rian Johnson. This is their joint statement. They said, in the summer of 1977, we traveled to a galaxy far, far away, and we've been dreaming of it ever since. We are honored by the opportunity, a little terrified by the responsibility, and so excited to get started as soon as the final season of Game of Thrones is complete. And then Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm president, also gave a statement. She said, David and Dan are some of the best storytellers working today. Their command of complex characters, depth of story, and richness of mythology will break new ground and boldly push Star Wars in ways I find incredibly exciting. Jonathan, are you excited, and what do you think they'll be diving into in their series of films?
I am extremely excited. This is kind of what I've been wanting for a while. My assumption at the time would be that maybe it would be a TV show. Mm-hmm. But I think a series of films makes even more sense.
Yeah.
Everybody has their opinions on Game of Thrones, but I think Game of Thrones as a TV show was one of the best TV shows ever made. Mm-hmm. It's also extremely complex. It's a massive production. And so you've got these guys that not only write the lion's share of it.
Yeah.
But are also direct episodes or involved as producers. I mean, so you've got somebody with this.
They can handle all of it.
Yeah, none of it is foreign to them. I would love. I don't know if this is the route they're taking, but I don't feel like you hire them without wanting to make some sort of older feeling. Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic kind of direction. I don't think it's going to be exactly what people are wanting, but I think it will be something in that era.
All I know is I want to see the Sith armies against the Jedi armies, and I feel like if you're going to do it, Game of Thrones, man. Instead of swords, we got lightsabers. Although, guys, some of the best adapted graphics you've ever seen is like Ned Stark holding like a lightsaber instead of a sword.
The memes have been quite strong.
People have been amazing. Which, going back to some comments, sorry about this, guys, I just saw them. Brad said, bring forth Jabba. And yes. Micah said, I imagine a subtle and unexpected Jabba laugh. I think we can all agree on that. And then Micah said, very interesting, nice transition for those guys, and that would be awesome. Agreed. Yeah, I can't remember if it's Benioff or Weiss that actually started off a little bit more in film. It's kind of escaping me right now. One of them started.
One of them is, but I don't remember which one.
Sorry, I should really have that in my notes, but I don't remember. I think it's Benioff. But yeah, this is a huge transition for them. And my understanding was actually that they might have been approached first about television, and they said, hey, no, we'd actually rather do a series of films.
And there was I think it was Iger on the call earlier in the week.
We're going to talk about it next.
Not about that, but like he made it seem that they were interested in one particular segment of Star Wars mythology,
right?
That all those films would be linked to.
Which makes us think even more that it's going to be Old Republic based.
A certain time period.
Yeah.
But, it kind of, to me, it kind of seems like Ryan's films, I think, are going to be either in the future or happening maybe during the Skywalker saga, just not going to continue those characters.
Yeah.
Or something even in the future. But I think this, I just feel like if you hire them, it's something.
It's got to be older. Yeah, but I agree. All right, well, moving on into the small screen, another huge bit of news going on here. In holding its usual first quarter conference call, Disney CEO Bob Iger revealed that Disney is developing not just one, but a few Star Wars television series. The shows will be coming exclusively to their online streaming service debuting next year, and Iger also added that the level of talent will be rather significant. Jonathan, do you think we'll be getting another animated series in addition to a live-action series we already had confirmed a few months ago?
It certainly seems like they're leaning that way.
Guys,
I mean,
this announcement came out of nowhere. That's what I feel like.
Well, they're pretty infamous for doing this at this point. They get on one of these meetings that you assume will be boring and intensive information.
And then it's like, oh no, guess what we're doing?
Yeah, just casually throw stuff around.
I know, right?
But I think, really, I think the sky's the limit. This is all going to be based on their streaming service. You already own this incredible IP, so why not have a couple different options?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that they're probably going to have at least an animated series and then a live action series. I think it's possible they have more than that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they start off with the two.
See, and that makes me, last week we talked about Reed Morano talking to Kathleen Kennedy, and that makes me go, ooh, I really hope they bring her in for something.
I have a feeling she'll be spearheading the live action show, whatever that is, and I have a feeling that
I hope it is
probably cooking up something on the animated side.
Filoni is always cooking up something.
Yeah.
So, and he should, because Filoni is amazing. So, there is that. So, guys, keep on commenting. Loving the comments so far. Let us know what you would love to see a show revolve around.
Yeah.
Because we are just out of our minds with excitement over all of the announcements that we've had this week. So moving right into the bookshelf, Rogue One screenwriter Gary Whitta is set to write the comic adaptation for The Last Jedi. He'll be collaborating with Michael Walsh and Mike Spicer, with new material to be included in the comic. The new material is supposedly a few new scenes and some of the scenes from the movie from a different perspective. It is set to release in May. And then also one book that might have skipped your notice, just as it did mine, unfortunately, was Jason Fry's Bomber Command. It was released on the same day as The Last Jedi and is a companion to Elizabeth Wine's Cobalt Squadron. Bomber Command connects Paige Tico's story to important events in the sequel trilogy and even includes Leia's last address to the Republic Senate. So yeah, that one completely skipped my nose because I had been paying attention to Cobalt Squadron at that point in time and didn't realize there was another thing going on.
Yeah, I didn't know it either.
So yeah, so be sure to check those out. Obviously, the comic won't be out until May, but the novelization of Last Jedi will be out at the beginning of March. And then this stuff with Paige was very interesting. It had like maps and stuff, like almost like her own personal journal is the way it's kind of formatted.
Cool.
So lots of interesting information there. Micah, I see your comment. He said, I'd love to see some more delving into the Mandalorians.
We're always down
Would
with
not
the Mandalorian
hurt my
story.
feelings at all. If you've been watching Rebels, I think being with Sabine and some of that.
Yeah.
Yes, just yes. I agree. Normally we would move into Galaxy's Edge. However, there's really not anything to say about Galaxy's Edge.
They're still chugging along.
They're still building it. Yay!
It's one of those things that, I could show you some more construction updates, but they look pretty much the same.
Yes they do.
So until we see something really interesting, we'll share it.
Yeah, right. So we're going to talk a little bit about one piece of Star Wars merchandise that's coming out. And then we'll talk about Star Wars on this day, and then we'll hit questions. So if you guys have any questions that we haven't covered so far that you want to discuss while we're live, just start commenting, and we will get to them in just a minute or two. So on Star Wars merchandise, Hot Toys revealed a new batch of hyper-realistic Star Wars figures for Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, and his royal guards. The deluxe version of the 6-scale collectible figure of Emperor Palpatine is a depiction of his appearance in Return of the Jedi. For a mere $314, you can get that. Or with the royal guard, it's totaling out at $205.
It's a pocket change, really.
Pocket change, yeah, sure. That's what we're going to say. But always interesting to see what they're bringing out. Of course, we've had several leaks about solo merchandise, so we'll get a full reveal of that supposedly in April until, more leaks happen between now and then.
That's true.
Which brings us to Star Wars on this day.
That's right. So today would be February 7th of 1978, and that is when A New Hope, or Star Wars, opens for the first time in Taiwan.
Oh, nice.
So pretty cool little bit of information there.
Very nifty.
So there you go. That is the very short Today in History 101.
Yes. That's all right. We'll take what we can get.
That's how it goes.
All right. Well, the only other comment I'm seeing is from Micah. He says, I need to watch Rebels. Yes, you do.
You should. It's a great show.
I feel like all those episodes are on the Disney app, are they not?
I think, if not all of them, most of them are, I'm pretty sure.
So I forget what the Disney app is called. I think I already murdered the name of that a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not even going to try again.
You can say Disney Anywhere, Disney Anytime. I'll murder it this week. It's fine.
Something like this.
You'll find it. It's a Disney app. And I'm not sure if you have to sign in with your cable provider. I think you do, but maybe I'm making that up. We'll see.
I'm sure you can also order them on Amazon, which might be an easier route.
It's always an option as well.
Fourth season is going to wrap up pretty soon.
Yeah.
So there is that. All
Well,
right.
Well, if y'all ever have questions during the week, you can always email us at theresistancerundown@gmail.com and just put TRR in the subject line.
Micah asks, is that where one needs to start for the animated Star Wars series? So
that is the easiest place to
that's
start.
the easiest place to start. Also, though, they did Clone Wars before Rebels. In Clone Wars, it's all on Netflix as of right now until, the Disney streaming service goes through, at which point they will yank that from Netflix. There are
six-ish seasons
Yeah.
of Clone Wars. The thing with Clone Wars is that was really the last thing that Lucas was involved with. And so you get a lot more fill-in for what some of the prequel material. I think the Clone Wars has some of the better stuff from the prequels, personally. Just storylines. You get a lot more into Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. They kind of canceled the show, at some point whenever Disney bought Lucasfilm. It was already kind of in the works, but
Yeah.
So the sixth season is kind of jagged in the way that it has.
They're trying to fill in what needs to be filled in, like before they ended it.
So there was more episodes that they didn't ever release, and so you don't really have to watch any of that to get to Rebels, but there is some good stuff in Clone Wars. It's a different animation style than what Rebels is.
Yeah. It's entertaining from the standpoint of you actually get to see Anakin be Anakin for a little while. And his relationship with Obi-Wan a little bit more, and how they fought in the Clone Wars together. That side of it I feel like is very cool. I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there is also that, if that's where you would like to start. And then Brad asks, is the animated series worth watching? Never been big on the Toons side of it. Rebels is definitely worth watching.
I think Rebels builds.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you can stick with it the first season, it really grows from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second season is really well done, and really all of them going forward have been. But I think the second season particularly is very good.
Yeah, and then the third season was really good with the introduction of Thrawn, and I think also, obviously, like the closer that you get to the end of the series, the closer you get into intersecting with Rogue One and A New Hope, and so you're starting to get into very familiar territory at that point.
Season 2, I think, will be probably my favorite season, depending on how 4 shakes out. But 2, you get some interference with Vader and some of that.
And you also get the Inquisitors, but you don't get in anything.
You get the Inquisitors.
The Inquisitors are really cool.
You get the Inquisitor. You get the main Inquisitor in season 1. But you get more of them in season 2.
The storyline with the Inquisitors is cool, though.
Yeah. So I think it's worth watching it. I think the first season is probably the most kiddie version of
After that, it starts to go a little bit more serious, a little bit darker, just because the Empire is taking over more and more. You see a lot more oppression in the
I think what also happened is that
galaxy,
Rebels came out, and I think it started becoming more popular with adults than almost than it was with kids.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of started swaying the storylines kind of as they go.
Yep.
Just my opinion on that.
So yeah, Rebels definitely worth it. Just stick it out for the first season, and then it gets much better from there.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'll take your word. Appreciate it, Brad.
Well, that does it for episode 18 of the Resistance Rundown. Thanks to all of y'all for checking us out.
That's right.
If you're interested in just our general movie news, you can check out the Shot List, which is our movie podcast we do every Monday and Thursday. You can also check out movie reviews on Twitter and Instagram at ATL_movies or on our website AboveTheLineMovies.com. Can't speak tonight. We're also on Apple News. So if you have an iPhone or an iPad, just search Above the Line, hit the heart, and we'll appear right in your feed. And lastly, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at BeachJD.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MCBeach.
That's right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys.
That's right.
We'll see you next Wednesday.
That's right.
As always.
With even more news on Solo.
That's right. It's going to be a whole week full of information here, so we'll look forward to talking about it more then.
That's right.
That's right. Well, thanks for watching. May the Force be with you.
Always.